So I'm trying to get a good angle and lighting for this inside. I just transplanted this fennel that I grew from one of these seeds. This is just bulk cooking stuff. This is not from a garden center or anything. And it worked out so well that I'm going to take you through it from scratch in case you want to grow your own fennel. I just transplanted that and stuck it outside. It's a little windy today, but it's just gotten warm enough, and hopefully it'll survive the transplant. If not, the new ones will, because that one that's out there now got started quite a few weeks ago when it was still basically winter. So here's the setup I use. I get some fennel seeds and pour some on a plate, because you are going to want to pick through these. Some are better than others, and I'll show you what I mean by that. I use some Jiffy pellets. If you can't get these in your country, I'm sure they've got something similar to this. And some peat pots, and a little baby greenhouse here, and just some warm tap water. So I got one of these little 12 pellet greenhouse. They do come in larger ones. I'm going to be using 6 pellets for the fennel, and I'm going to be planting some chili in the other 6. That's one thing I should say to you right now. If you are going to be sharing greenhouses, make sure that the plants you're growing look different when they germinate, so you can determine which is which. So what you're going to do is take your pellets. Now they look flat kind of on one side, and they look like they got a little target painted on them on the other. So put it with the ring up. And I always put the same type of plant on one side of the greenhouse, not to get things too confusing. Now just pour in some warm tap water. I don't really measure this, and you'll see why after. You could just pour out the excess. It's not a big deal. So just kind of fill up the bottom like that. And if they start to float up, push them down and get them under the water. I'm going to put this on fast forward now so you can see them swell up. So I'd say that took about 15 minutes, and they're all puffed up just nice. There's not too much water left. I'll just pour that out in a minute. The next step is to select your seeds. Now, little tiny ones that look kind of worn out or funny, push those off to the side. That's a nice fat looking one. I'm going to use that. And I might try that one. That one's a little too tiny. That's what I mean. If you're using kitchen spices, you've got so many seeds to go through that you really can afford to pick the best ones. And if I don't like all the ones that are here, I'll just get some more. Now, I do use a fork for this. If your spouse or parent or significant other is going to flip out on you for using a fork in dirt, by all means, just snag like a plastic fork from somewhere and use that instead. So there I've got my final selection. Now, I'm using 3 seeds per pellet. If you get really good at this, you can actually end up using just 1, but you want to make sure they're going to sprout. So minimum 2, 3 preferred. So the next step, once you've got these in, is get your fork, metal or plastic, and just pull aside the webbing on the pellets. That you can get into them easily. These should be completely soaked. If they're not, just add some more water and wait a bit more. You should have a nice dark color on the inside like that. These are peat pellets, which work the best to start these things. Now, if you got one of those heated mats or something, you can always just use some good moisture control soil. I find that works okay too. But I kind of like these things. They're fun and they're really easy. So once you have that open, then what you're going to do is you're going to dig in. Yeah, try not to take some out. Just leave it after you scrape it in the pellet. Scrape it to the side like I'm doing here, to dig like a little hole. I'd say probably about a ½ inch deep. This isn't like too accurate. You get a feel for this after a while. So once you've got your hole dug in the pellet, just get your seeds. Always do this by hand. And just put one in. You can see that one there. And try to space them equally apart to give them all a chance. Now this is where, if one is too close to the other, you can either get that end of the fork or the blunt end and just move it over a little. You don't actually want to be using your fingers for that. It works much better with the fork. And then just take the soil that you have dug up and very, very gently press it down over them. Until they're nicely covered. So I'm just going to repeat that with the rest of these now. I've got the rest of them all in, and now I'm going to just cover them all up. Yeah, be very careful while you're doing this and pay attention. This may sound strange to some people and not strange at all to others, but if you really pay attention while you're doing this, it really seems to help. I mean, after all, these are to be young living things, so you should treat them with care and attention. If you just like throw them in and forget about them, well, don't be surprised if nothing happens, eh? And that's it. And what you're going to do is now you're going to cover them with your lid to your greenhouse and check on them every day. You'll notice it'll mist up tomorrow. You shouldn't need to add any water at all for a few days at least. When the soil or the peat still has this really dark color, you're fine, because you don't want to overwater them at the beginning. If it starts in the middle to get that light brown color like on the edges, definitely it needs some water. But I'll be checking on these every couple of days at the beginning. I've been having windstorms on the back porch for the last few days, which is why I had to move all the bushes back into the kitchen here. There's our tray over there. I'll have to reach it somehow. Well, it was a lot easier just moving it out than trying to get the camera in through the bushes there. So as you can see, this is completely moisture covered. So these little trays do hold it really well. Now, none of these, it's only been 3 days, none of these have sprouted yet. But the reason I'm opening up just to show you is so that you can see that it is still moist enough. There is no need at this point to add any water at all. So just take your lid and put it back on. Any moisture that collects and drops back down onto the pellets is fine. Try not to lose any. This is the morning of the 6th day after planting. The fennel's on the left. I'll zoom in here a bit so you can see. And I'll turn it so you can see the far, take a look at the far corner one here. Fennel has a double stalk sprout at the beginning, and you can see that the multiple seeds are sprouting in here. and one of the peat pellets is starting to look a bit dry, so I should add a little bit of water today. When they're germinating, you definitely don't want to let them dry out completely. It was a week ago today I planted the fennel, and I just went to check on them, see if they needed some water, and yeah, they're pretty ready to transplant right now. So I'll get to that later this afternoon. I'm going to take a little break in my busy cooking day here. I only got one day off this week, and I'm trying to film several recipes, but when these get like this, you have got to plant them or you're going to lose them. Because what happens is they get too tall too quickly in the little pellets, and then they just heal. So I've got some peat pots here. There's 6 4-inchers. And I got a bucket of moisture soil here. So, and also, I won't move the camera again, I have got a jug of water that is basically at body temperature. Now, you have to remember, I mean, okay, fine, they're plants, but they're still like little babies, okay? So you should have some respect, and don't go trying to shock them with ice cold water and water that's too hot. Pay attention to what you're doing. So, first off, what you're going to do is you're going to just dip your peat pot in your bucket of soil or whatever. I also have this super large coffee mug, which works out just great for filling these things after. So I'll get each of those about halfway full. And as I said, I always use the Miracle-Gro and Moisture Control soil because if you're new at this, it holds the water quite nicely and you don't have to worry about it, watching it every second. Now see, look how fast these grew. The roots are out the bottom, but if you're careful about it and just place it very nicely in the middle, they won't get damaged. And I hate to say it, I've got this knack, all of them came up, which I really don't like because I'm going to have to pinch some off, but I wasn't going to get you to plant one seed in each one in case your seeds don't come up for you. Now see, this one is a little lower, this is the right height. This one is a little too high. I don't like to muck with them too much, but as long as you can take a little bit of dirt out and just pop it in another one for the time being. And just get all of those seeded nicely. See, there's another one, the roots are just coming out like nothing. And what you can do, if you have too much, just grab a handful out of there, just pop it in. Carefully, being careful not to break the roots to the bottom if there's any way you can avoid it, which is another reason why you do 6, because if they all survive, you will have to pinch some off, but some could die during the transplant. And just put the dirt around the side. Now, this one's a little droopy. The seed is still attached to it. The other one is going to come off. What you can do is try to gently coax it off with your finger. If you pull on it, you're going to tear the plant. As this dries off, it should just pop off on its own. But I did give a little nudge by getting the clump of dirt off the end. So once those are all in like that, get yourself a nice big coffee mug or whatever kind of container you've got, and just start filling them around the sides like this. So what I do is I fill them from the sides, taking care not to hit the plant. I'll use my other hand for this, so hopefully you can see it better, what I'm doing. Okay, and then turn it. And tilt it. Now, if you have to protect the seedling with your other hand, just cup it and do that, that's fine. Like this, you can just lift them up very gently. It's far better to move them with your finger than pour dirt over them, which will probably break the stems. If the stems break, they may look alive, but they will die in a day or two. So I got all of those in, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure I water them thoroughly. The soil was moist. Again, take your time with this. If you're not comfortable using this big jug, I'll just get a glass and show you. You can just pour out a glass of the warm water and pour it from the side, not over the plant itself, because like I said before, you don't want to break the stem. And you can roll it around like that. I'll lift up another one and show you. So just pour it around. You can swirl it around too. Try to cover it quite well. You do want to soak these right after a transplant, but you don't want to overwater them after this for a day or two, because if you over soak the roots, it'll kill the seedlings. Those are all looking nice and damp. And don't worry about the dirt at the bottom of the tray. When it all dries out in a day or two, you can just lift these out and just throw it over the edge of the balcony in the backyard or something. So I'll put these in the greenhouse I've got and leave them uncovered. I don't put the flap on the greenhouse because it heats up way too quick. They stay sheltered in the plastic greenhouse that I'll show you in a minute. And this will take a little maneuvering because I was having 40-mile-an-hour winds outside today, and I had to move everything in. The landscaper's booked for a couple of weeks from now, so they're going to go right there next to that green plastic pot. So I managed to get that in there without tripping over everything on the floor. Yeah, they got lots of light near the window. And because of the plastic covering, they're going to stay warmer than they just would be on the counter in the kitchen. Just before I give you a shot of the fennel, I thought I'd give you another shot of the trees. The landscaper's coming in 2 weeks. At this rate, it won't be quick enough. They're growing a little quicker inside than I'd hoped for or planned. But they're doing quite well, as you can see. And they should be outside in 2 more weeks. So these are the fennels that had been in the greenhouse that I transplanted 4 days ago. And as you can see, they've done quite well. Now we're coming to the difficult part. And this is why I was telling you, don't plant too many seeds if you've got what appears to be a green thumb, because then you're going to have the difficult decision of which ones you have to pinch back, because the pots will only, this amount of soil is only going to help one plant. If you try to keep all of these alive, you'll get short, stunted plants, and you won't get something good and strong. Oh, and I will give you a quick shot. I've got it on the floor over here, because the weather's just been lousy, of that one fennel I had started at the beginning. So here are the ones from the greenhouse, and here is that large pot that I'm growing from a single seed. And it's kind of, the lighting's a little difficult in here, but it's actually gotten to be this high so far. Now this one I did have to thin out, like I'm going to with these ones here, but I'm going to let these go for another couple of days and make sure that I pick the right plant to keep.